It's been very much the summer of Saudi, not just when it comes to football, but to sports in general, from Live Golf PGA merger to the acquisition of a stake in a major USA MMA league last month. All summer long, the Saudi transfer window shut on September 7th. We've been talking about bombarded of this star going to Saudi for an eye-opening wages, etc., etc. Executives at two different Champions League clubs predicting the Saudi League will become one of the world's top 3 or 4 domestic competitions very soon. And it's true that the Saudi League has recorded a net spend of $889 million this summer. Only second to the Premier League at $1.29 billion, and it becomes even greater just for toes when the leagues below that in Europe are all registered as a positive net spend, meaning they shifted players for more than they spent to acquire them. Those are just fees to Saudi clubs. Spurs huge contracts for the likes of Benzema, Firmino, Kante. But here's the thing, maybe rather than talking about superstars moving, we should be talking about superstars moving to PIF teams, because PIF, one of the Saudi sovereign wealth funds, the majority owners of Newcastle as well as Live Golf, own 75% of the four most popular clubs, Nasser, Etihad, Al Hilal and Al Hilal, which is acquired seemingly overnight in early June. They're the guys doing all the spending and signing the players you've heard of. Fully 93% of the $889 million net spend mentioned earlier in the PIF clubs. Of the 12 clubs, 10 had a net spend of less than $8 million, and those 4 had a net spend of less than $2 million. While it didn't have a net spend at all, they actually broke even or made money. Get beyond the PIF clubs and you'll probably recognise a couple of guys Al Ettifaq net spend roughly the same as Crystal Palace, like Jordan Henderson, Wijnaldum and Dembele, and perhaps El Shaddad, net spend of 15 to 16 million, about 2/3 of what Luton Town spent with the likes of Diallo, Carrasco. Beyond that, that depends how much of football nerve you. Former Barcelona youth player Alex Collado, on loan relegated Elche last season, now on loan at Al Uqad. Former Milan and Lyon backup keeper Kripan joined Amba. Ghanaian forward Musa Barrow from Bologna as well has won. Matthias Norman, who became something of a pariah and the team banned from the Norwegian national team, signed on loan for Moscow last year, has since joined Al Raid on a free agent. For all the PIF funded free spending and hype up at the top of the SPL, most of these teams spent the summer signing players you'd have thought they targeted who could hold their own in the Saudi League, arguably the best bet in Asia, but probably not much in the top 10 in Europe, as they didn't cost very much. Last summer's record signing was Gabonese forward Bupanza, who joined Al Shaddad for $7.8 million for all Qatar's Al Arabi, and now plays for Cincinnati and the MLS. There's very little in the way of transfer fees. 10 of the 18 clubs didn't sign anyone for more than $3 million, and a ton of free agents from the Big Five leagues. Likes of Romanian midfielder Steinchu, who joined Damic from Chinese champions Wuhan. It then makes sense, given that you're not a Saudi national and you spend at least half your year living in the country, you pay zero income tax. The takeaway here isn't to mock the rest of the league, but rather to point out that most clubs aren't holding their breath, wasting for the trickle-down benefit from the Big Four funding. They're not swayed by PIF Lagos, not to the point of putting serious money into squads. It also suggests that either the PIF plans for the Saudi Pro League don't expand beyond their Big Four, better to have 4 teams and spread the resources around, or maybe they weren't able to put much money into it. Plenty of folks have weighed up as to why the FPIF chose to invest in football. They mentioned sport washing as a means of distracting from the company's human rights record. They talked about soft power and how sports at the highest level garner influence in the world, and they pointed out a way to diversify an economy that's dependent on natural resources like gas and oil, which will one Monday. Princeton professor Bernard Haikal, who literally wrote the book on the subject, dismissed the first 2 series in a recent podcast. Instead, he suggests it's about domestic transformation, diversifying an economy, not just natural resource dependence but state dependence. 70% of the Saudi's working age population employed by the public sector, developing upper economic activities. Is football that kind of activity? It's a big business to become cliche, but in terms of garnering eyeballs, no doubt true. Yet can be profitable, sustainable business that employs a significant amount of people, particularly when the vast majority of clubs lose or break even. Essentially what we have is right now is 4 supercharged clubs, all majority owned by the same entity, spending like European heavyweights, 2 more spending like Big Five league minnows, and the rest pretty much at substance. This shouldn't really be surprising at all. For Saudi, we're still talking about 17th biggest economy in the world, between Indonesia and Holland, and 23rd highest GDP, more than Finland, less than Bahrain. It's enough money to make major investments both domestically around the world. However, it's not enough to jump and kind of take over with oil prices, etc, etc. We have a pretty good idea of what Saudi football will look like with a PIF, and yes, Cristiano Ronaldo's club and unpaid transfer debts to FIFA, and they were banned from transfers. It was a sort of league that averaged just under 10,000 games, which is roughly the same as Poland, a country where population and love of football is comparable. Can you turn that into a success? You can say it's insane or stupid or a bad investment, but I think any state that depends almost entirely on one resource will find it very difficult. If it can accomplish 2030, if not 100%, then that's already an amazing thing. Perhaps the correct way to look at things is a long shot gamble to the country's taking, not just in sports, but some will pay off, some won't. And it brings to mind Statistics 101 problem. You have £10 to bet. Do you bet getting heads once and winning you twice your stake, put the original £10, or do you bet on getting heads 3 times in a row and winning 100 times to make your stake £1,000 plus your original stake? Maths would suggest the latter, because while your chances of winning are lower, your payout is 50 times higher. What is the minimum bet of 100,000? Most of us wouldn't do it, because there's a lot of money most of us would lose. We'd opt for the safer bet if we're going to talk about it at all, because this is the odds of winning much higher. The thing is, right now, £100,000 is not a lot of money for PIF, and it's worth them to pursue the higher outside, because it works. If they win 10 million, if it doesn't, well, they can afford to lose it. It feels as though a lot going on, trying to turn the league into a juggernaut by juicing the 4 most popular clubs, a contrast to what happened in China in the early days of MLS, when there was a concerted effort to promote parity. It's a moonshot, high risk, high reward endeavour, and the fact that Saudi clubs have followed PIF's lead doesn't exactly bode well, but you've got less SOS crush, maybe it's worth the roll, darling, because the payoff could be huge. But anyway, guys, that's it. Thanks so much for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Next one's going to be for daily football news and subscribe to the channel. It's going to be greatly appreciated. Thanks so much for watching. Peace out.